Today, we discuss some common game rules which we feel are causing headaches in the battlefields of the 41st millennium. Now, the rules chosen were never going to be complicated ones, so quite simply put, cover. Overall, I do like the cover system in 10th edition as it's easy to use and there are never any arguments at the table debating if your tank was indeed 50% covered or not. However, the positives of the system are also its drawbacks. It's far too easy to get cover, as only the smallest part of a model or unit need to be obscured for the unit to receive a bonus to its armor save, effectively negating a point of armor penetration. All guns across the range have had their AP reduced and standardised since 9th edition. Things were getting out of hand, with guns easily getting up to AP 4 and even 5. However, the knock-on effect of the new lower AP, combined with cover being so easy to get, is that AP 1 guns are no longer as hot and can be very unreliable. A funny example is that the super heavy Space Marine Astraeus battle tank, its main gun is only AP 1. It's like an 8-inch long gun, it's massive. There are ways to get around this, but it would funnel you into certain detachments and playstyles, which isn't the end of the world, but it is a little bit of a nail in a coffin for certain weaponry. Devastating Wounds. One of the earlier data slates for 10th edition changed how Devastating Wounds worked, which previously dealt the weapon damage as mortal wounds, meaning the Wraith Knight Fate die spam got ridiculous and was wiping out infantry units left, right and centre. The change was needed as now Devastating Wounds are a damage type of their own and won't cause entire units to be wiped out from mortals. The downside of this change is there is next to no way to gain any protection from Devastating Wounds. I think Feel No Pain is maybe the only method, please correct me if I'm wrong below. To counter this, each Devastating Wound can only remove one model now, regardless of how much damage it does. Sure, it's safer for infantry squads, but you can bet your tanks and their dreadnought mates are going to get absolutely slapped like before. One thing I feel was not considered with this change was that units with mortal wound protection now feel a bit underwhelming, as they can only use this save in a very rare circumstance. Overall, it's a good change, but still wildly open to abuse if an opponent gears their list towards this mechanic. Luckily, in the January data slate, the Custodes gained their protection back, so I believe it's a 4-up they now have against Devastating Wounds and vehicles. 10th has seen vehicles and their kin go from rubber ducks to sledgehammers, capable of dishing out punishment whilst remaining ultra tough and somewhat impervious to small arms fire, and giving anyone who gets too close to them the fear of whatever god they worship because of the tank shock stratagem. Most infantry can no longer deal with a tank in combat and just become stuck there whilst it continues to shoot at them due to the big guns never tire special rules. Beforehand, tagging a tank in combat meant it wasn't going to be shooting and would be forced to remain there, where it was going to waste a turn, or it would have to also fall back and not shoot. As a result, we've seen a large increase in the amount of armour units people have been bringing to the table, and in my head it's awesome that tanks are tough and can't get easily taken out by regular infantry, just as they should. I would, however, like to see infantry getting a bonus in melee, akin to how in the Horus Heresy you always strike the rear armour of a tank to represent you finding its vulnerable points or dropping a grenade in a hatch. There is, however, no easy way to deal with this, but I would like to hear your thoughts, because equally, my point about striking rear armour, in that same game, something like a Land Raider which is armour 14 all round, regular infantry can't hurt it. And maybe this is the way it should be, and you thought we were done. However, here is the bonus rule which really is getting to us in games, and it is Dan's dice rolls. For anyone that's a long-term viewer of the channel, you're going to know exactly what I mean. For anyone that's not, stay around because it's still relevant for you to hear, whilst also consider checking out some battle reports so you can get clued in too. So it's got to be the most broken interaction of 10th edition, and that is Dan's dice rolls. Maybe you have the misfortune of knowing a Dan. They are cantankerous creatures capable of long hours, mockery and theft of food. Now our resident one perhaps needs a rules rewrite, as despite a d6 having 6 side, he just refuses to acknowledge the existence of any result below a 4+, and will just roll that and above no matter how many dice are provided to it. If you find yourself in this situation, it can be pretty tough to plan for in-game, but you'll have to do what you can to play around it. Ideally, a data slate is needed, but my fear is Games Workshop will carry on ignoring the problem like always. Passing 10 out of 15 invulnerable saves, usually against mass melter fire, is considered an average roll for a Dan, so you need to watch out for this and plan for it during your shooting phase, by launching 45 melter shots at him instead. Finally, they are masters of the movement phase. As you can see pictured here in one of our most recent battle reports, we have a unit of 10 Fleshhounds that Dan has managed to keep strung out by transcending the rules of unit coherency. We are offering classes actually at £69 per person if you wish to learn these ancient techniques of Dan. We expect the places to sell out fast, so you will want to get on them. As always, guys, thanks for bearing with the silly slide at the end, but if you've enjoyed this or it's been helpful, or maybe you disagree with any of the points, drop a comment, let us know. And if you are wanting to stay around, consider subscribing, but definitely drop a like or comment, because that does support us. It gets our videos out there to a larger audience, which is ultimately what we would like. If you think, these guys are all right, then there's always an option to drop a thanks on any video or sign up to the Patron. Advantage of the Patron is every month you get automatically entered into a prize draw. So if you want to be part of that, join the Patron. Whilst you're there, have a read of the other benefits to see if it's for you. Thank you very much.